Does Jason Shay have the charisma to be an effective head men's basketball coach at East Tennessee State? Hi, everybody. I'm Marky Bilson. Jason Shay, a week after it was announced he would be the next head coach at ETSU, is now starting to make media rounds. There was a big feature story on him in the Johnson City Press. He did his first radio interview with the local radio station, WXSM, talking to Bobby Rader and Bud. By the way, just to make a quick note, really is kind of distressing that right now in the Tri-Cities, there's only one local sports talk show. Really is very distressing. And I mention that because, you're giving Bobby Rader the monopoly on sports opinion, which I'm sure he likes. But Bill Mead's show, although locally based, is generally national in content. You can argue maybe Don Hellman on Saturday mornings on that radio station will try talking some local sports, but generally that show, becomes, after a while, I guess the guy succeeded at WEMB, calls in, he wants to talk about the Yankees. Don Hellman is then left talking to himself for about an hour, unless they get some paid sponsorship with, Jerry Teague, who then talks horse racing for half an hour or 45 minutes or so. And that's the Sunday morning show on WXSM. Okay, for some reason, by the way, Bobby Rader has blocked me on Twitter. I have no idea why, and that's on him. He's blocked me. I haven't blocked him. I don't know why. I know that when I was doing the show at WEMB, there were times when we put it on Twitter that we would notice that he was watching. So why this is the case, I don't know. I don't have any animosity to Bobby Rader and all this. I just think that having only one radio talk show host willing to give an opinion on local sports is probably not the best thing. One voice instead of the other side of the coin. Now, that being said, you've got to look here at Shay's stiffness when he is talking to the media, and it was readily apparent, and it really comes off in the case of Jason Shay as, when you're listening to him, oh my goodness, this is our leader. And, I've been very critical of ETSU administration for not making him the coach right away, for going through a search instead of just saying, wait. We would have kept Steve Forbes anyway, so why not just make his top lieutenant and try to keep a good thing going? And then Shay could try to shore up his relationships with the players that he had currently coached and keep it in ETSU. As it is, his two remaining starters from the 2020 ETSU Buccaneers, the Southern Conference champs, have now both entered into the transfer portal. If you look at social media, it looks like Damian Williamson, the point guard who is leaving, that he probably is going to leave. It does not seem like he is talking about returning to ETSU. Bo Hodges, who was their best player returning, in my opinion, there is, I guess, an element of hope that he might be able to return to ETSU, even though he's got 1 foot out the door. So with Williamson, he's probably gone. With Hodges, it's hope not. But then again, they both do have 1 foot out the door. So you're talking about an ETSU team that could very well not only not return its coach, but not return any starters. It would be Patrick Good and everybody else. Perhaps that could help David Sloan, the Kansas State point guard transferring into ETSU, get the waiver. I don't know. I am wondering if, say, transferring from Kansas State to ETSU would be similar to a situation like you have in football, where if the FBS player does decide to transfer to FCS, he doesn't have to wait a year to play. But there's no guarantee of that, certainly. That's just, who can tell. But I do wonder if one of the reasons why Damian Williamson did decide to transfer, and it looks like he is gone, is that Sloan was coming in. And that, here is Sloan, before Kansas State, played at Logan Junior College in Illinois, a favorite breeding ground for Shay to get recruits from. And you're talking about a guy coming in from, yes, a bad Kansas State team, 11-21 last year, but nevertheless the Big Eight. And you had to wonder if maybe Williamson was figuring, could my playing time decrease if Hodges gets the waiver? I know everybody's got him, he's going to go to Wake Forest and all that because he's from Winston-Salem, but that remains to be seen, and that also seems to be really, really convenient and such. Now, the one thing about Shay is that I've talked about his honesty, and I think that might be able to help him overcome his stiffness. If he can be the coach that, few words, but is willing to say what he means and means what he says, and I do think that Shay has those elements, maybe then he can be successful and get over some of that stiffness, if you will. One thing that I did enjoy seeing, or that I thought that was very important, is as the media rounds came out, Johnson City Press this week printed a quote from Chris Lofton, former Tennessee guard of about 12 years ago. And he spoke of Shay working one-on-one with him and elevating his game at Tennessee thanks to Jason Shay. That was very telling to me because Shay has primarily worked with post players at ETSU. Now, I think it goes without saying that a D1 head coach will know every position, but I did think that was a positive statement for Shay's coaching ability. It'll be interesting to see if as a head coach he continues to do the one-on-one or if he leaves that to assistants. And then there's still a couple of assistant coaching positions to be filled on the ETSU roster, if you will, coaching roster. And he told Bobby Rader on WXSM that his assistant coaches must be willing to do anything. Now, I've been a big fan and proponent of, hey, bring Mr. Jennings back into the fold. The women's coach at Lee's McRae, but the greatest player ever to play at ETSU. He's always let it be known that if the situation ever came out, he'd love to return to ETSU. It would be tremendous public relations. It would be a tremendous bridging of one great era to another. It would be tremendous branding for East Tennessee State, something that I'm not quite sure they do right now, except maybe being the subservient school to Tennessee. And I will subservient school to Tennessee. I'll talk about that in just a second. But one of the things that I know from talking to Mr. Jennings is that he is not real big on going all over the country at the age of 51 on the recruiting trail. And that would prevent the willing to do anything requirement that Shay has for an assistant coach. Then again, as I have said many, many times, you could not find anyone in the world better at, hey, come to ETSU and you can make it. You can be an NBA player. Look at me. I've done it. And frankly, also, if you look at Shay's stiffness, having the charismatic Jennings beside him, that could overcome that. That could really be the guy that, Shay, he's got the ties, he makes the initial contact, and then it's Jennings who shows them around the campus and asks for the order and so on and so forth. That could work in that situation. You just hope that Shay, with the coach must be willing to do anything, also realizes that you don't treat the legend like you do the backup center. Quite frankly, right there. And that led me to think about, when you're speaking of transfers, Mac McClung, the Georgetown star guard. He declared for the NBA draft, but he just pulled out, and then he announced he was going to transfer from Georgetown. The reason is that at Georgetown, he was always going to be a shooting guard, and the NBA scouts say your future is to be a point guard. Gate City, Virginia native Mac McClung. Well, Patrick Ewing didn't want him to play point guard, and Patrick Ewing up at Georgetown basically has an unwritten rule. If you enter your name into the transfer portal, goodbye. Goodbye. Yeah. Which is very different than ETSU. Now, reading Twitter, I saw schools like Maryland, North Carolina, that were talked about places that McClung could transfer to. Tennessee fans seem to all think that he's going to come to Knoxville. It's the hometown team and all that. Actually, it's not. ETSU is the hometown team. And this would be the greatest situation if you had Mr. Jennings on board, because if Mac McClung is going to try to go someplace that can make him into an NBA point guard, who better than to finalize the sale to bring him to Johnson City and then to work with him one-on-one than Mr. Jennings? I mean, end of discussion right here. There's nobody better. ETSU really has to also start branding themselves that they are the Tri-Cities team, that they are the, team of the area. It's not Tennessee. Tennessee is Knoxville's team. And I know that when the sports talk show host in town that talks local sports also reads the scores on the Vol Network, maybe he is a little bit more inclined to talk Tennessee than he is ETSU. I do get that. But the Tennessee fans clamoring for McClung and the very limited response from ETSU fans saying, maybe he'd like to come back home, that's the ETSU inferiority complex coming through again. It has to end for ETSU to go from being strong team over the last 5 years in a Southern Conference to mid-major powerhouse with a true identity, a la, let's say, a Gonzaga. Okay, I mean, so, this would be, though, you want to talk about Shay, things that haven't begun well. Losing his only 2 returning starters, potentially, to transfer. That's not a good start. Showing a lot of stiffness in your media sessions, that's not a good start. But if you could bring in McClung, all that's forgotten. Folks, I'm Marky Bilson. If you like what I'm talking about, then I invite you to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Hit the bell, you know what to do. Many of you are also watching on Facebook, where I initially put this video out. But yes, please do like my Facebook channel. You will get more than 200 videos in an ETSU playlist, as well as playlists about sports media, playlists about sports in the Tri-Cities, Tennessee area, sports, a ton of interviews with Shay. There is one interview with Jason Shay, and quite frankly, I didn't think he came off as stiff as he has recently with the media. Well, you can listen to his interview that I gave him back in December of 2018. I hope you do. I hope you subscribe to the YouTube channel. And until next time, I'm Marky Bilson.